Colourpop recently came out with a new peach 9-pan palette called Peach Jelly, and when I saw it, I immediately was wondering, how does it compare to Baby Got Peach? That is what we're going to be looking at this video. I'm going to do some detailed swatch comparisons and looks with each palette. Both palettes are currently available and will be linked. If you find my video helpful and decide to use my links, thank you so much. It really does support my channel. This is what the inside of Baby Got Peach looks like. It actually came out in 2021, I want to say, and the first thing that immediately stuck out to me is that I don't feel like there's really deepening up shades in this palette. And not gonna lie, that does bum me out because I do like a good peach moment. And I think peach is just such a fun color to wear in spring and summer in particular. Here is what the 4 shimmers in Baby Got Peach look like on my fingertips. You get 3 satin tone shimmers, and that really sparkly one is a pressed glitter, and you can see that it doesn't apply evenly. You do have to kind of go over it with your finger a few times when swatching. The other shades in here are satins. You have like a rose gold, a champagne, and more of a kind of warm toned gold with a hint of peach. Definitely all tones that complement peach really well. Here's what the inside of Peach Jelly looks like, and you can see immediately you have some deeper tones, especially that deepest shade in the palette will be really great for creating more of a smoky tone look. And you do have 2 mattes with shimmers as well. Here is what all 4 shimmers look like swatched on my fingertip. You have an iridescent, and you'll see when I swatch these shades that a couple of the shimmers have kind of like a sparkly topper-like effect, versus all of the shimmers in Baby Got Peach are more satin-like. So I do feel like you have more of a variety of shimmer finishes in this newer palette. I would say the tones of the shimmers are also different than the ones from Baby Got Peach. Here's what the 2 palettes look like swatched side by side. I think this view is particularly useful. I would say the biggest overlap between the 2 palettes are those more mid-toned peach matte shades. From initial swatches, you can see these palettes aren't dupes, but I do think it will be helpful to see what they look like in use side by side. I also just want to mention that in terms of packaging, the newer palette Peach Jelly is all cardboard versus the older Baby Got Peach palette is in plastic packaging. For me personally, I do prefer the cardboard packaging. I love when palettes are fully compostable, especially when the packaging is still sturdy. All right, and I'm going to put 1 palette on each eye just so we can see what they look side to side. But I do have some other products that I want to play around with on the face just because I'm doing more of a Colourpop focused video. I use this liquid bronzer in another video and I really like it. I have the shade Surfrider Beach, and this came out earlier this year as well. But I did discover that it is very pigmented. So I'm just going to use my finger instead of applying it directly to the skin. But I did find that it blends very, very easily. I'm just going to be a little bit less generous with my application this time around. But I think this is basically my perfect bronzer shade. And I don't know, I've just been really into liquid bronzer recently. I find that it's just so easy to work with, especially this one from Colourpop and the one from MAC. Now I'm really excited because I'm going to dip into this peach blush lighter. This is the shade Perfect Peach. And I just feel like it's going to complement the peach look so well. Again, this is a very pigmented formula, so I'm just taking a little bit on the back of my hand rather than applying it directly to the face, just so I have a little bit more control. And I'm going to take that same brush and work that in. This formula from Colourpop really is so beautiful. Gives like a soft sheen without sparkle. All right, and here's how it's looking after applying to one side of my face. And here's after applying to both sides of my face. I just think this shade is so beautiful. It's going to complement those palettes so well. Now I'm going to line my lips with one of the lip pencils from the Frosty the Snowman collection. I don't know if this is still available. It's the deeper of the two shades. It's kind of like a pinky brown shade. But I just thought that I would stick with more of those kind of peach and pink tones for this look. I don't always use those tones, but I can get down with a good peach moment. And now I'm going to use one of the glossy lipsticks, and I have the shade Meet Cute. And these are twist up, they don't twist back down. Here is what the shade looks like on the back of my hand. It's kind of like a mauve tone shade. All right, makeup is done except for the eyes. Let's dip into the palettes. All right, first I'm going to start off with the Baby Got Peach palette. As you can see, you don't really have any deepening up shades. I'm not much of a pressed glitter person, but this one is really pretty, so I think I'm going to incorporate it into my look, even though it's not the type of shade that I tend to gravitate toward. I already primed my lids with the Danessa Myricks Color Fix Nude in the shade 4. Now for my transition shade, I'm going to dip into the shade here. It's called Ochre. And I'm just going to put that into the crease. I just feel like with this palette in particular, I probably wouldn't get a lot of different looks out of it, and that just has to do with the selection of mattes that there are. I don't feel that way about all of the monochromatic palettes from Colourpop though, by any means. I'm going to use that same shade on a kind of thinner brush and put that under the lower lash line. And now I'm going to use the shade Centerfold to deepen up the look a little bit. To me, this seems like the deepest and the peachiest shade in the palette. So I'm just going to use that to build up a little bit, but you can see like that is really not a deep shade. Do I think that you could maybe get enough depth from this one if you had a lighter skin tone? I think maybe so, because I have seen some really pretty and cohesive looks with this palette. But I didn't previously own it, and this is probably the reason why. All right, now I'm just going to take this tan shade here called Darlin', and I'm going to put a little bit under the brow bone, kind of just like as a brightening shade, and then a little bit on the inner corner as well. All right, I have this shimmer primer from Day Signature. I'm just going to put a little bit on the center of the lid, especially since I am planning to use the pressed glitter as well. Start off with Ready or Yacht, which looks to me like a champagne shimmer. Here's what it looks like on my fingertip. And I'm just going to place a little bit of that on the inner portion of the lid. Looks pretty applied with my fingertip, I have to say. Even though there's no really like sparkly toppers in this palette. Now I'm going to go in with this more kind of golden shade called Get Even. And then I'm just going to place that more on the outer portion of the lid. Now I'm going to take that pressed glitter, which is quite pretty, and just put a little bit. This has multicolored flecks in it too. Now, I am really not a pressed glitter person, but it is pretty. I'm just glad that the palette, or not the updated palette, the newer palette doesn't have a pressed glitter. But since I'm using this palette, I can't resist using this glitter. I'm going to put a little bit under the brow bone, or on the brow bone, and a little bit on the inner corner, just a little bit. And just because I feel like I need a little bit of drama with this look, I'm going to use the shade Whiskey from Urban Decay just to add a wing. All right, and here is the first completed look. All right, and let's go ahead and dip into the Peach Jelly palette on the other eye. For my transition shade, I think I'm going to use the shade here called That's Sweet. And this is a peachy nude, but it has like a little bit more brown in it as well. Just kind of like a brown toned peachy matte. And, you know, I do feel like we have a couple of shades in here that are deeper, which is typically my preference. The other thing though is that you have a couple of mattes with shimmer. That really doesn't bother me too much, but it is something I want to mention because it isn't everyone's cup of tea. I'm going to take that same shade and put that along the lower lash line. All right, I'm going to start to deepen things up a little bit with Extra Ripe. I do want this look to be a peachy look. So I'm just going to place that kind of all over the lid. I also just want to see how all of the shades, or as many shades as I can, perform. It's a pretty shade. And it's not really, doesn't look that similar to the one that I used in my first look, really. More pigmented, giving more. And then place that same shade along the lower lash line. Now I'm going to go in with the shade Housemaid, which looks like it's a little bit less deep than this shade here. I'm going to end with that deepest shade last. Just going to add a little bit in the outer corner to start deepening up the look. I do like how warm toned that is. I feel like this is a very warm look. And so the vibes, the tones of all of the shades go together well. And again, just taking a little bit on the lower lash line. All right, now we're going to go in with the shade Peach Pit, which looks to me like the deepest shade in the palette, and place that in the outer corner. Now, I did get quite a bit of fallout with that shade. Filming my eyes last on camera is not always what I do in real life, but I do it for the videos. But I would recommend doing your eyes first to avoid the fallout. All right, here is how things are looking. I feel like everything did perform well, other than the fact that, yes, with the deeper matte especially, I had quite a bit of fallout, but let's play around with some shimmers. I want to go in with this shade here, Peachalicious. Here is what it looks like on my fingertip. I'm pretty sure this is a duochrome, but this one is definitely like a sparkly topper-like effect. And I felt like in the first palette, there were more satin type of shades. I'm just going to put some on the inner portion of the lid. You kind of get, you know, a little bit of that multicolored sparkle effect that you got with the pressed glitter, but without the pressed glitter. Like this is technically eye safe, and the pressed glitter is not. So I think this is a nice alternative. And now I'm going to go in with this kind of copper toned shimmer here. This is a satin texture, and I would say there's no shade like this in the first palette. And that will go so well blended into the deeper matte that I have in that outer corner. All right, and of course I have to use this iridescent shade as well. This is called Jiggle Jiggle. Here's what it looks like on my fingertip, and I'm gonna add some to the brow bone. Again, it has like kind of a sparkly topper-like effect, and a little bit to the inner corner. If I didn't already have a blush lighter on, I would use this as a highlight, but I really like the way that this blush highlight looks as is. I might just take the smallest amount and just add it even over top to just enhance that sparkle a little bit. All right, and here is the second completed look using the Peach Jelly palette. I have Peach Jelly on this side and Baby Got Peach on this side. All right, now that I've had a chance to go through everything and doing some detailed swatches and a look with each of these two palettes, I want to close up with some wrap-up thoughts. I think you've basically heard my thoughts as I've gone. I think that for me personally, this is a much more useful palette. This is the Peach Jelly palette, and it is the newer of the two palettes. This came out, I want to say, in 2021. It's been many years since Baby Got Peach came out. So in terms of the main advantages that I see of this palette, one is I really do like the old cardboard packaging, better for the environment, and just, you know, easier overall. They both don't have a mirror, so to me, you're not really gaining anything from the plastic packaging. I like that this newer palette has some deeper options, no pressed glitter, and more variation with the shimmers that are in here. So you have some that are more kind of sparkly topper. I like that you have an iridescent. And yeah, just overall more versatile in my opinion. Now, to answer this question about do you need both palettes or can you get use out of both palettes? I do think there are some shade differences in here that would make it so that these could definitely work together as complementary palettes. But I do think that overall you're going to get a similar vibe in terms of you're going to end up with a look that looks peachy with both palettes. It's just that this for me is a lot softer and I can't get, you know, as much use for me personally, as much drama. But I think, yes, you do have some shades that don't overlap between the two palettes. I just don't personally feel like it's necessary. And I think that most people would find this palette to be more useful even if you have a lighter skin tone. But let me know what you think in the comments and which palette you prefer. I do feel like more people are going to say they prefer the Peach Jelly. And I just really hope that you found this video useful. I just thought that it would be because, I don't know, the first thing I thought of when I saw this palette is how does it compare to Baby Got Peach? Because these are definitely giving similar vibes. If you made it to the end of this video, please leave me a peach emoji. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see any other comparison videos. I really enjoy doing them. As always, I really hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.